We would also love for you to rename yourself with your name and county or organization in your Zoom picture. And you'll see Karen just dropped in a sign-in sheet. So welcome everybody. Happy Monday. We're so glad to see you here today. We'll get started in just a minute. Please go ahead and sign in using the form that Karen just dropped in the chat. And rename yourself with your name and count your organization in your Zoom box. You see some folks are still joining, so we'll take one more minute. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Good to see you here today. Again, please, if you're just joining us, go ahead and complete the attendance form that's in the chat. Please also rename your Zoom screen with your name and your county or organization so we know who you are. We know there are a lot of new folks here with us today. So please rename your Zoom. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Sohail.
Sure. Thanks, Ronita. Happy Monday, everybody. Good morning. Hope you had a good weekend. And welcome to, I think, what marks the official beginning of year 3 of this Transforming Together endeavor. Yeah, I saw Brittany's hands go up. Congrats to all. Let me just start maybe by introducing a few CYBHI resources more generally that are relatively new, may already be on your radar, but just in case not. One is related to the fee schedule. For those who are tracking DHCS, recently released a new updated program manual. And so I'm putting the link to the main DHCS page where you'll find the top link within that page is to the program manual, really to assist in implementation of it. Numbers wise, there's now more than $1 million of claims that have been paid to school districts in the state for about 20,000 different services that have occurred. 40 school districts have received those remittances, and they're coming from 30 different health plans. So moving in the right direction. Still certainly more work to be done there, but appreciative of everyone's efforts really to break down barriers, right, and collaborate across the ecosystem to make some changes here. So that's one. And as part of that effort, we need to navigate between different information sharing and privacy rules. So there's a new HIPAA FERPA toolkit that's been released. And there is a 3-part webinar series that's occurring really to bring that toolkit to life. Big thanks to Elizabeth Estes and Mike Lombardo from this team, along with Rebecca Gudeman, for really assisting in those efforts and being the stars of the webinar. So the next one is October 23rd, I believe. In the link I just put into the chat, you can find information about how to register for upcoming ones and how to view the decks and videos of the older ones that have occurred. And then the final broader piece of information I'll share is we know many of you have the pleasure and privilege of working with Spanish-speaking audiences. And there's so much in the resources that CYBHI has stood up that is available in Spanish. What I've just put into the chat is a link that is 100% in Spanish. So it's all the resources in one place. Every link in there goes to a Spanish-speaking subsequent page for more about each resource, whether that be Saluna or suicide prevention work through Never Bother. Everything on there is Spanish. So to the extent that supports your communities, I just wanted to make sure you're aware of it and able to share it out. All right, so those are the broader pieces. Related to transforming together, I'll say last week had really the good fortune of hanging out with Peter Stoll and Katie Kavanaugh and the amazing team at Humboldt County. So thank you all for arranging such just a fantastic visit. We met with school leaders, we met with community organizations, we met with county agency partners, and it really, to me, like brings home this idea of ecosystem reform, right? Like there's just such great work that's happening to serve young people holistically, culturally, conveniently. So really great desires, great work happening there and in many places. I know members of our team were recently hanging out with Armando and Imperial as well. So I just think if we can lay out the path here in this space, not just philosophically, but really operationally, to bring that ecosystem to serve that child holistically, it has such tremendous potential to reshape service delivery throughout the state. So thanks for your commitment, for your part in this journey. And I will pass it back to Renita, who's going to talk about both the agenda for today, but also a little bit of an overview of where we're going in this final year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sohail. Well, welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ronita Guha. I'm a principal consultant with EdFirst. We've been supporting the Collaborative Working Leadership Group for the last couple of years, and we're really excited about the year ahead. I know we have a lot of folks today, and a few folks joined a little bit late. So if you have not done so, please complete the sign-in form that is in the chat. Karen has dropped that in. Complete that sign-in form so we know who was here today. You can also find all the materials in the CLWG live binder, and she's also dropped that link in the chat as well. So all of these materials are available, including this slide deck. Also, if you haven't, because we have so many new folks here, if you could please be sure to rename yourself in the Zoom chat with your name and your organization or affiliation. That would be super helpful to us because we'll be doing some work in breakout groups in a little bit. All right, so we're going to dig in. So really quickly, our objectives for today's meeting. We really want to make sure that you come away understanding the technical assistance structure for the demonstration counties, as well as the learning journey for this working group over the course of year 3. So I just want to make sure everyone has that, like really understands where we're headed in year 3. We're also going to spend some time sharing a few sample tools and resources that are going to support building a shared leadership structure. And that includes what we call here a needs assessment inventory, and is really a data collection reporting inventory. And so we'll spend some time talking about that. And then we're going to spend some time really planning concrete steps for the demonstration counties to advance towards their goals and really kind of come away at the end of year 3 with these shared leadership structures. And then finally, we want to make sure we're continuing to build relationships within this group. So really excited that you're all here with us today. Our agenda for today follows roughly those objectives. So we're going to spend the first part of our morning really orienting you all to year 3. And then we'll spend time doing what we're calling a skill building workshop for shared leadership. And we're going to share a few different key concepts and tools in breakout groups. And then we're going to spend some time applying and integrating those tools through our demo county breakouts before we wrap up for today. So just a few things. I mean, I think, Sohail mentioned this is really about operationalizing a lot of concepts and ideas that have been that are in the ecosystem paper. And so we're going to focus our attention and be much more intentional this year about the specific tools and resources that you're going to need to build up the structures to support a broad ecosystem of care. We also want to be much more intentional about highlighting the expertise in this room. There's so many, just a wealth of expertise amongst the CLWG members across a range of agencies, whether that's health or education or other areas. And so as you're going to see today and throughout the year, we really want to ask you all as working group members to help us present content, to lead breakout groups, and generally offer expertise where you have it. We're also going to spend a bit of time today orienting everyone to what's coming for the CLWG this year. As I mentioned, we've been spending a lot of time thinking about the year ahead and creating a learning arc. We worked with the San Bernardino team, with Sohail, with Elizabeth and Mike and others to think through an arc of learning, to create a more defined technical assistance structure for the demo counties, and to really clarify the roles and responsibilities of all of you so that the demo counties really have the support and assistance they need to be successful. Again, after that orientation, we're going to dive into some of the specific tools to support shared leadership and shared goals, which are as you all know, the focus of chapters 1 and 2 of the implementation guide that we've been working on. It's also shared leadership and shared goals are also the goals that the 4 demo counties are focusing on for year 3. So we really want to start off the year providing some concrete tools to help move that work along. And again, we'll go into breakout groups. And then, as I mentioned, we'll give the demo counties some time to meet together to update your action plans and how you might use some of those tools that we're going to be discussing. And then just note, if you are a demo county, we are going to ask you to report out on your discussions before we close today. Those of you who are CLWG members and are not members of the demonstration counties have been assigned to demonstration counties as thought partners and critical friends. You should have seen those assignments in our pre-work emails, but we're going to share them again later. And we hope that you will continue to push and be really great thought partners and bring your expertise to the work of the demo counties. All right, so that's the overview today. With that, we're going to do a quick 5-minute connector. We're going to send you off into small breakout rooms of groups of 3 or so, and we're going to ask you to take a few minutes to answer the following prompt. Thinking about shared leadership, what's one key ingredient or practice that you believe is essential for it to truly thrive in an interagency setting? So think about that for a minute. I'm going to drop it in the chat as well. And you're going to go into small groups of 3 to 4 people for just about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll bring you back. All right, we'll see you back here in 5 minutes.
That was great.
Okay, has everyone gone? I'm like trying to scroll through. Want to make sure everyone made it to their breakouts.
Looks like they have.
Okay, great.
Nice job, Jermaine. Hi, everyone. Great to see all your faces. Some I've seen before, some new. So thanks for joining us. So as Sohail mentioned, this is year 3 of a 3-year initiative, the Transforming Together, and really a lot of our work, especially in year 2. Year 1 was really about figuring out what we were doing in some kind of way and getting to know each other. But we've really been working to operationalize the concepts and work of this working paper, which I'm also going to put in the chat right here. You all have probably seen this. It's been out for a while. Elizabeth and her team at Breaking Barriers did an awesome job putting this together. But the idea is building an ecosystem of care, right? How do we build a system that is not duplicative, that is coherent, and that supports families and youth, you know, in our counties and across the state? So building on this working paper, we, Elizabeth again, and Mike Lombardo and Richard Knecht have been writing an implementation guide that is a companion piece to this, what we call the ecosystem paper. And what we've this CLWG has been reviewing the writing, and we've been learning from the CLWG about how this gets implemented, particularly in the 4 counties that have really been part of what we call the demonstration counties, right? You all have been working to implement this. We've been learning from you all. And then we bring together this CLWG about once a month-ish to provide expertise to the demonstration counties, but also for the CLWG members to learn from what's going on in the demonstration counties too, and to bring together this cross-agency expertise so that we can develop some processes in the guide that will help other counties across the state and ideally across the nation. But I guess we should start with what's manageable first. To really implement this ecosystem of care. So this is our purpose. This is what we've been doing as a CLWG. We've really focused, as Renita said earlier, on chapters 1 and 2 in year 2, which was really around shared leadership and developing shared goals, and how do we look across the data that we collect and use that to develop goals that cross agencies. And that can align us to a single purpose, even across our agencies in counties and the state. So as we said, we're gonna look at that a little bit today and in October, and then we're really gonna be looking at chapters 3 and 4 and the guide, the material and the concepts around implementing chapters 3 and 4 for the rest of year 3, so that essentially what you all will get is a roadmap. Even if you're not there, and we're not expecting you to implement everything right now, you'll get a roadmap for what that would look like. So if you go to the next slide, this is, many of you who've been coming to this meeting have seen this slide a lot, but this is essentially the 4 chapters that are laid out in the ecosystem paper, and the implementation guide that we're creating is aligned to this, is really a companion. So you can see chapter 1 was really around developing shared leadership. Chapter 2 is around data, using it to develop shared goals. Chapter 3 is going to be, how do you arrange your services so that they are aligned and coherent, and develop a workforce that understands how to manage that alignment and coherence. And then 4 is really about sustainability, financing, all the good stuff around how do you keep the work going in the midst of funding changes and staff changes, et cetera. So that's kind of our larger purpose for the CLWG and for where we're going this year. But I'm going to hand this over to my colleague Anne, also from MedFirst, because we've been working over the summer with the San Bernardino folks, with the Breaking Barriers folks, with Sohill and others, to think about what that arc of learning looks like for year 3. So you all have a better idea, at least at a high level, of what to expect from the CLWG meetings this year. So let me hand it over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Brinny. It's an honor to be here and talk through at a very high level the arc of learning. So what is it that we're going to lean into collectively, build our shared knowledge and understanding? We can't do everything. So we've been thinking about, what's the structured progression of topics that'll really help operationalize key concepts and give folks tools and skills to continue to move the work forward. This is about, learning collectively. And the guide that Brinny just described envisions this whole process for building an ecosystem of care. But we recognize that, especially for the 4 demonstration counties, but any county doing this work, you're at different stages and you have different contexts, and that's fine. So what I'm about to lay out is really a roadmap. You can see where you are in the process, where you need to go, celebrate what you've done, and honor and plan for what's to come. As with any transformation process, this doesn't happen overnight. Y'all are making an incredibly great and strong start, and we're eager to support you in continuing to do that high work. So our goal is to really focus on 3 specific things this year. It's at the bottom bullet: shared goals, which you all have been working on, that equitable service design, and sustainable financing. So we've chunked this into 3 semesters because, it's we like to think of in ways that provide a theme for us to hook onto. So in the fall semester, we're really focused on getting aligned and listening. The CLWG will meet in September, October, November. And in December, that'll be some time for some local work. But really thinking about goals, routines, and community needs. So we're going to spend time during each of our CLWG sessions highlighting a few of the key tools, and giving you the resources to deepen your work around goals, routines, and community needs. So that's in the fall. Then we'll pick up the winter semester where we're really focused on design. So this semester is really focusing, now that you have identified your needs, really translating that into an equitable service design that has a clear workflow, a way of operating, so that you can actually take what's on paper and put it into practice. So we'll be focused on universal service arrays, interagency data sharing arrangements, and then also beginning to touch on funding by looking at braided funding options. And then we'll culminate in the spring by really thinking hard about sustainability. So funding, improving, continuous improvement, and this idea of future proof. Do you have the systems in place to sustain your work, regardless of who's sitting in the seats, and taking advantage of every possible funding opportunity you can? So financing, measuring, and continuous improvement is where we'll be in year 4. And we'll be sure to spend some time at our last session in June, not just setting you up and looking back at the work you've done, but really celebrating the work that you've done to date. So let me just pause for a quick second and see if there are any questions. Okay. As you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. To help really move this group through the learning, really digging into our collective learning and address the specific goals that the demonstration counties have, we worked with this summer both to set up the learning arc, but also working with San Bernardino, Breaking Barriers, and Sohill to codify and clarify the kind of technical assistance that the T2 initiative will be providing in year 3. So Brittany, you want to walk us through the TA for this year?
Yes. So again, at a high level, this is, as Anne said, just a bit of a codification, a clarification, and then bringing more intention. And a little bit of this is new. So the CLWG meetings, which are that middle rung, which really serves as a bit of a community of practice. The demonstration county bring a team. We have other CLWG members who bring various lenses of expertise from various different agencies, and we come together like this meeting 8 times this year to kind of dig into what's happening in the demonstration counties, to what we're seeing in the field, and talking about implementation. We are adding this year some field-facing webinars. There will likely be 4 of them. Elizabeth and her team at Breaking Barriers is going to be putting those together, a series of 4 2-hour webinars that really take the learnings that we've experienced and drawing from the CLWG to create a more statewide or perhaps even larger facing explanation and of what this initiative is, but more importantly of what it means to develop an ecosystem of care. So these webinars will be sort of more public facing, field facing, to kind of present kind of the along the lines of what we're doing in the guide, how to think about an ecosystem of care and how to operationalize it. And finally, we are Elizabeth and her team are going to provide, we have some funding, San Bernardino's providing some funding to provide individualized and customized coaching. Some of, I think all of the demonstration districts are getting some kind of that, but what we're doing is working to codify that. That's still ongoing. There are still meetings happening with each of the demo counties. But the idea is that while you may have a lot more, at a minimum, you would meet individually with a coach. The demo county teams would meet individually with a coach once a month in between the CLWG meetings to further the work at whatever stage your county is at. So this is individualized, but we are codifying it here because we understand that, it helps to come together in a community practice and talk about what you're doing, but it also helps to really get specific about the opportunities and challenges you're facing in your particular county. So this is the structure that we are intentionally moving towards in year 3. Again, we have done it, just maybe less clear and less intentional in previous years, but now we're getting more intentional about it. The other thing I wanted to mention is something that we sent out, which are just a clarification of the roles. So demonstration county members, CLWG members, that's the folks from Alameda, Fresno, Humboldt, and Imperial. You all are our test sites for implementing the tools and processes included in this Transforming Together implementation guide that we've been talking about. So the idea is that we'll work with you to introduce tools and processes into your county systems and then learn from you as you report back on successes and obstacles to that implementation, and then share the knowledge gained from your work within the CLWG and beyond, and hoping that you will then champion the work. And as was mentioned earlier, for those CLWG members who are not part of a demonstration county, we really want you, you are here also to provide connection between your organization or your county or your network to this statewide Transforming Together initiative. Share the knowledge and expertise that comes out of these meetings, share learnings that you get from watching the demonstration counties put the implementation guide into practice, and also championing the work. And provide whatever support you can, support and expertise you can, both in this forum. We're going to be asking you more specifically to join in and present content with us to provide expertise from your particular lens. So let me stop there and see if there are any questions about this. All right, if any questions come up, please do feel free to put them in the chat. You can send them, you can send them to me, or just put them in the chat and we will follow up with you after the call. So now I am going to turn it back over to Renita, I believe.
Nope, it's coming to me.
Oh, to Anne, sorry.
All good. So let's get to work. Let's dig into thinking about shared leadership together. We'll be focusing on a few practical resources, and you'll have a chance to choose one of these resources to spend a little bit more time in conversation with your colleagues. So specifically, we are going to look at the MOU, the meeting matrix, and a new data collection reporting inventory tool. These are real-world examples and frameworks to help you navigate common challenges and strengthen your collaboration effort. So let me go over each of these and think to yourself about which of these tools might be most useful to you right now with your leadership goals, or you have some curiosity about. And then you'll get to choose where to go spend your time. The first is the MOU. Yes, it's a legal document, but it's more than that. It's the foundational framework for establishing a clear, two-tiered interagency leadership structure. And one of the examples that we'll be showcasing today is the work that Santa Clara County has done. This formalizes your partnerships, but also clarifies roles, making sure everyone is really aligned to this shared leadership vision. It's the vision thing. The meeting matrix, this tool, which has been effectively used by Alameda County and others, helps to streamline and enhance community engagement and cross-agency efforts. So it really helps you optimize how you collaborate and making sure that the meetings you attend are productive and purposeful. And the third is the data collection and reporting inventory tool. This is a new resource. You may have seen it before. This really helps you figure out what data collection and reporting everyone's already doing. So we have called this in the past the needs assessment inventory. This is a structured way to really identify who's got what data, when is it being collected, and where you might have blind spots across your collaborative. And that is really crucial to make sure you have informed planning and strategic alignment, and also making sure you're not getting the same data in 10 different ways. So those are the three tools. What we'd like you to do is we'll open up breakout rooms and you'll have the opportunity to self-select into the breakout room that you'd like to spend more time thinking about. It's just 20 minutes. And so in these breakout groups, you'll review the tool, discuss its potential application and relevance to your shared leadership efforts, and talk about how you're using it. CLWG members with experience with these tools, will be providing a quick overview and can answer any questions you have. But we really want to hear from you about how this might be helpful, how you might be using it already, and even what challenges you might find. All right, so Janine, we are ready to open the breakout rooms, and you'll have 20 minutes before we come back for a group session. Thanks, everyone. All right, Susan, was so interesting, and I was fascinated to hear about the work that is underway and how tools have been adapted. And so I'd like to just very quickly invite the CLWG lead or facilitator from each room to just share out one thing you're thinking about coming out of the tool discussion. So I'm going to call on you actually in the order by your room numbers. So Richard, you're up first. You were in the MOU room. So what's one thing that you took away?
Thanks, Anne. Really dynamic conversation, I think. Understanding that it's hard work to adapt what in many counties is a limited population of focus of just foster youth under 23 to a larger cohort of kids. But I think that's underway in all 4 of your cohort counties on some level, and some of you are already in counties where that's been done to some effectiveness already in terms of expanding the population of focus and recognizing where you need multiple champions to get that done, right? AB 2083 then at that moment is no longer just about the welfare probation kids and getting mental health care, right? It's about wellness for our ecosystem. So yeah, that's what I took away from this morning.
That's great. And the resources that were shared in that room will be sure to include in the overall tools. Thank you. From the meeting matrix room, Brittany, who's reporting out? Dennis.
All right. Really rich conversation. We took something as simple in concept as a meeting map. So we looked at the importance and the complexity of it. We used an example from Alameda County of a map where we looked at sort of the big picture all the way down to really specific place-based and specific efforts in areas where there are multiple county agencies collaborating. The group had rich conversation around the potential of something along this line, both for our internal strategies within our own agencies, as well as our collaboration across multiple agencies. Brittany, anything to add to that?
I think there was just we were starting to get there when we had to stop, but as always happens, but we were looking at we were also adding the question about the community, the CBO space and how those interact with the meeting matrix for externally and internally. So how do you include communities in that meeting matrix? And the other thing that is just the training that's needed or the thinking around what this actually means, because on the surface it can look like a simple tool and it's really not. It evolves into very tough but good conversations. So it was, yeah, that would be my takeaway. Thanks, Dennis.
Great. And Renita, what was going on in the data collection reporting inventory group?
Yeah, so folks actually shared links to a lot of other data collection and reporting sites. So we've expanded what we have in our toolbox. I think the other thing that I really appreciate that folks said is that when folks look at sort of data and what they tend to focus on, like what's missing, what do we need? But I think the other piece that a few folks mentioned, it's also a place to look at assets and strengths and to celebrate those. And so as we're doing this work and looking at all of these different data collection tools, like not just using it as a not just going in with a deficit mindset, but going in with like, hey, what are we doing really well that we can lift up from this data? So appreciate that and welcome anyone else from my group to jump in if I missed anything.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. I know talking about a single tool is an opportunity to think about how to improve your work and adapt the tool to your own needs. So hopefully you all came away with an idea of something you can do next related to that. And there will be time in county breakouts to spend a little bit more time thinking about what's the right next step for you. But before we do that, I want to sort of branch out a sort of step back for a minute. And we've asked two of the CLWG advisors from different contexts. And I heard folks talk about the opportunity that the tools you were discussing have for bringing different agency partners to the table. So we've asked two CLWG advisors from different contexts to just talk with us about what it looks like to build a shared leadership structure from their perspective and in their respective contexts. So I'll pose a couple of questions to them and then open it up for questions or discussions from the whole group. So I'm going to introduce, you all probably know these two, Navdeep and Marnie. Navdeep with the Sacramento County Office of Education and Marnie with the Santa Cruz County Health Services. Just first, actually, would you all like to just briefly kind of introduce yourselves and what kind of shared leadership you are working on right now? And why don't I ask Navdeep to go first?
Thank you, Anne. Good morning, everyone. Navdeep Purewal. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services at the Sacramento County Office of Education. And in terms of what shared leadership, I really appreciated the opening question and breaking out into groups. One of the aspects of shared leadership that I'm really trying to hone in on myself and also extend is staying curious. I think oftentimes in leadership, we know a lot about our lane, and oftentimes, unless we stay curious and start to venture out of our, let's say, grants or contracts or scopes of work, we often miss a lot of opportunities to, one, build relationships, and two, to better serve our students and families and communities. So I would say staying curious, and I'll hand it over to Marnie.
Thank you, Navdeep. Good morning, everyone. Marnie Sandoval with Santa Cruz County Behavioral Health as the Behavioral Health Director. I've actually been with behavioral health here in Santa Cruz County for almost 5 months, but previously have been with Monterey County for 25 years, working as the Children's Director and the Deputy Director of the Behavioral Health Department there in Monterey County. And so really bridging this work together and grateful to continue to be part of what's happening here, which I see as truly fundamental to the work that we all do across our agencies. The way that I have been trying to work through shared leadership, truly, I just see all of these children as our children. I mean, we're collectively serving them. Despite our siloed legislative mandates, these are all the same kids and families. And if we don't think about them that way, we will continue to stay siloed, and they're not going to get what they need when they need it, despite us thinking that we're working together. So that's really my focus in this work. It always has been, and it will continue to be, to de-silo and take care of these kids together.
Marnie, thank you, and Navdeep both for teeing up this big picture. I'd like to get a little more tactical, if you don't mind. So Marnie, I'm going to ask the same question to both of you, but who are you actually trying to engage? Like when you think about who are the people that are really important for you to build relationships with and come to some shared understanding with, and what are some of the barriers to working with those either individuals who should not be named or the agencies themselves?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really important thing to actually define and think about. For the work that we're doing, the partners that I have seen and the leaders that are critically important, of course, are the leaders within behavioral health, the County Office of Education, SELPA, Child Welfare, Juvenile Probation, First Five, the courts, particularly the judges, the regional centers, public health, because they're really in that prevention space, and then parent representation. And I would say there definitely are barriers that we're still trying to figure out how to overcome locally that I suspect now being in 2 different counties, they seem to be the same in many places. The regional centers in particular, their jurisdiction spans across multiple counties. And so I'm seeing that they're pulled in so many directions. And so participation and kind of commitment to the work has been really hard for them. Despite any good intentions, they don't have the bandwidth or the organizational support to really dive into this work in the way that I think needs to happen for it to be successful with them as committed partners. So that's certainly been a barrier. With SELPA and district leadership, in most counties, there are many, many districts. And so it's been challenging to figure out how do you include the voice of district superintendents without including so many people that it immobilizes the process. We've thought about, maybe utilizing the county office superintendent's council as a way to kind of keep connection and information flow rather than having all of the district superintendents participate directly. Still kind of exploring how to make that truly functional. Certainly with the courts and the judges, it's been really challenging to get their understanding and buy-in that this is a critical group for them to participate in. And the courts overall, not necessarily the individual judges, but the courts overall haven't been particularly supportive of the judges' participation, largely due to bandwidth and capacity issues for the courts. Let's see, public health, certainly prevention does live in that space, suicide prevention, substance use prevention, and it's been a process to get the prevention work through public health and the prevention work through behavioral health really aligned and coordinated to get it to be, to have public health be an effective partner in this larger systemic work. So again, work in progress. Parent voice inclusion, I think probably one of the most important participants in this. And I have found in multiple counties that the group of leaders is largely stymied at trying to determine the most effective approach to identify the who and the how of including parent voice. Yet it's so important. And then I think maybe lastly, I would just share that, behavioral health, the County Office of Education, Child Welfare, and Juvenile Probation, I mean, we work together frequently in all counties. The quality of those relationships varies from county to county, but we're all working together. And the 2083 MOU and having the requirement for an interagency leadership team, I have found has the group of leaders largely seeing, oh, we work together. This is great. We've got this one covered. And and I find that interesting because I think what they've got covered is collaboration. But most counties, these groups of leaders haven't really gotten to true effective shared leadership yet. And so I think we need to just keep working towards that.
That is a really great distinction. Well, Navdeep, I'm curious, how different is your list and your barriers to what Marnie shared?
Absolutely. I would say +1 to all the partners that Marnie talked about. Absolutely. And I appreciate the lens from outside of the County Office of Education. I'm actually going to focus in more on our partners within our County Office of Education. And seeing sometimes the barriers really being, as I mentioned earlier, everyone staying in their lanes, not as much collaboration happening, running grants and contracts based on scopes of work that may not mention or point to collaboration around something like AB 2083. Although we know that in much of our work, we're all focused on students and families and creating schools that are support the whole child academically, social, emotionally, and physically. And so really focusing in on within the county offices of ed. I can share that being at Sacramento County Office of Ed, and I think I've mentioned this before, not even knowing about the ILT-EAC AB 2083 coming in as the Regional California Community Schools Partnership Program Director. And once learning about it, and after learning about it through this work, and leading the State Transformational Assistance Center and during that transition, really trying to find a way to have community schools be a part of that executive advisory council or committee. And in all honesty, sometimes there are barriers there.
Sure.
Right. So right now, it's our associate superintendent, I believe, of mental health and wellness, is on that committee, as well as our director for foster youth and homeless. And so there's a little bit of, well, we have two representing, we don't want to kind of overcrowd from the COE space. And if we bring in community schools directors, then what does it mean for everybody else who tries to? So it in all honesty and full transparency, it has been a barrier. I think we've been siloed. I think we've now started to find opportunities to collaborate, and I'm really excited because we're starting to see that shift because we're staying curious about each other's work and the opportunities to collaborate. So, for example, based on the push, and I shared in my breakout group that I do step on toes, and it's okay because I'm doing it for the right purpose. And I know that, sometimes it doesn't feel good, and sometimes people are like, wait, what is she doing? But at the end of the day, it's also through building relationships with folks to where it doesn't feel as though it's stepping on toes, but more so finding opportunities to support our communities. Through that, we actually now we recently just met with the division director for behavioral health, who sits on the EAC. And it was our mental health and wellness director. It was our prevention and intervention team members. It was our SCOE court and community schools assistant superintendent. It was our director of expanded learning. It was myself, from representing the STAC and the RTAC for community schools. It was our foster youth and homeless services director. I will share that in 2 years of being here, we all have never been in the same room and having this conversation, let alone with someone from behavioral health. And we're actually setting up quarterly meetings. We're having different checkpoints. And we're getting familiar with this work as an agency, as a county office of education, so that we're starting to really be mindful and intentional about our collaborations and how all of our work actually does center around this very thing around AB 2083, especially if we think about all students.
That's great. And Navdeep, you've got a request in the chat. Sarah wonders if you could actually share the list of attendees. I do think like getting specific about who the table is being set for is really helpful. It also can help identify who might not be at the table that you need to be sure come in. I do want to again help think a little bit more practically. And Marnie, you raised this idea that we have building relationships with people and collaborating is not necessarily is not the only parts of a shared leadership. So what's the difference between doing a good job collaborating and getting along and the shared leadership that you're envisioning?
Yeah, that is a really important question. I don't know that I have the be all end all answer to that question, but the way that I am definitely thinking about it and trying to carry it forward with all of my partners is that we need to be engaging in the unknown together, because that way we actually start tackling things before there's a mandate to address it. That's truly shared leadership, right? We're going to think about gaps, barriers, challenges, and start to identify solutions together, and we co-create them. You can do that at the local level, right? And then legislation comes down, you keep an eye on that, and you're constantly tacking back and forth together to be ahead of things. And like I had the wonderful opportunity, years back when all of the KDA regulations came out in the behavioral health space, requiring that all kids in child welfare involved capacity need to have mental health assessments. Collectively in Monterey County, we had solved that before that lawsuit had happened. So those regulations and requirements came out, and that was such an easy pivot for us because we were already collectively prioritizing that for the kids in that county. So that's just one example of how if you're really truly partnering and collaborating, thinking about it in a way of solving things before we're told to solve something, paying attention to your local ecosystem. That's shared leadership from my perspective.
That's great. Navdeep, how about you? Actually, I think Sarah's question might get at some of this as well. Like, what does the shared leadership mean and show up differently as you're striving towards it?
I think what we really discussed initially and what that looked like is understanding how this work really connects to each of the work of our teams, right? So even level setting, starting with just building the foundation of what is our charge as departments or groups of individuals that work really hard towards our goals and our focus areas. And so once kind of identifying that, it's also then being able to communicate that with outside agencies like behavioral health, like child welfare. And so coming in as a unit that is well aware and intentional around how we are, what we are, one, how we're asking to collaborate and what we are asking to collaborate on, right? So not just saying, here's what we do and here's how we support students and families in our communities at a county office of education. So please help, right? Please help us. But no, really thinking about what are our goals and focus areas for each of our scopes of work in each of our areas and our passions, and what support do we actually need? Where can we get that internally first through already existing networks or relationships or connections? And then really, where is our list of, hey, we're actually not doing a great job in serving students and families and communities in a few of these other areas, right? And so it becomes first kind of level setting and building the foundation, then being really clear about why we're partnering. I think sometimes people can get really frustrated with county offices of ed because they're being contacted by 5 different people from one county office of ed. And I think it's like, whoa, hold up. And really think about what are like the top 2 or 3 areas that we should really dig in on and build systems around.
That's great. I'm going to open it up for questions, but I'm going to frame my last question to you, so folks can feel free to drop questions in the chat or direct message me and I'll ask it, or you can come off mute in a minute. But we've just been through a conversation about some very specific tools, and each one of those tools is designed to really help solve a problem that is a barrier to shared leadership. We have too many meetings. We're doing too much data collection, repeating each other's data collection, or we need to have some clarity about what the partnership looks like. That's the MOU, the meeting matrix, and the data collection inventory. As you think about your year ahead, what is a problem that you are looking to address in your shared leadership goals? It could be one of those or something else. Would kind of just love to hear how you're thinking about taking your work to the next level. And Navdeep, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, really thinking, so I do frame in community schools because that's, majority of kind of my world. However, I think sometimes that can be really exclusionary, and folks who aren't grantees may feel as though it doesn't apply to them. I think the goal right now is to really, for me, is to think about how can collaboration and coordination equal sustainability. There's such an eye on sustainability around so much funding that is being questioned right now, and we know that our students and families and communities need supports and services that we are providing, and they need us to be integrated and coordinated and aligned. So really the goal right now is determining what are the levers in terms of ecosystem of care, county coordination that's going to support sustainability of services, not only that are funded through the California Community Schools Partnership Program, but services that are funded that may be at risk of being defunded for other reasons, and how are we thinking as a county office of education in supporting all of our districts, students and families. So I would say the real focus right now, and where a lot of time is spent, is around sustainability.
That's great. Thanks. How about you, Marnie?
Well, I was thinking about all of the various tools that you guys were focusing on for us today. And with the work we have to do, it's very helpful to have tools so that you don't get lost in the fray. The MOU, I do think, is a really important starting point as a requirement that we figure out how to effectively lift up shared leadership and really ensuring that we're including all of the partners, including our tribal partners, even communities where there aren't federally recognized tribes. I mean, these families live in our communities. How do we effectively engage those individuals as well and include them in the shared leadership? I think that's important. The meeting matrix, like meeting fatigue is real. Like we all know that. So really that tool, I think, is a wonderful way to help us minimize the number of meetings that we're all collectively in while we can increase the efficacy of the meetings that we do engage in. So I think that that's a very important tool for us to uplift in the process going forward. And then with the data reporting, I mean, we're all collecting and reporting on so many required data points. Is all of it even helpful? Is it being meaningfully utilized? I think as a local ecosystem, utilizing a tool like that to really outline all the various points of data that we're collectively gathering might actually help us get to a place where we could identify some shared outcomes. And so which data points do we actually use to have some meaningful way of reporting out shared outcomes that are impactful. So I think all of the tools have a really important place and can help get past a hump that's acting as a bit of a barrier at making progress. So at least that's my plan.
That's so great. There's always more work to do, always. Let me just open it up. We have time for 1 or 2 questions from the room. You're welcome to just take yourself off mute, and if you do, introduce yourself and ask your question.
Well, I'd love to hear a little more about the parents and youth engagement. I definitely can go with you on how difficult that is to where to even start and how to do it well. But I guess I'm wondering what people have tried and if you have an idea about where you're going to go next.
And Laura, will you introduce yourself before
I'm Laura Hogan. I'm with the California Accountable Communities for Health, which is a collective impact type initiative in 36 communities in California.
Thanks.
I can share that so many of our programs that county offices of educations really implement have opportunities and focus areas around actually collaborating with students and families and community partners built into our vision and our goal of the work that we implement. And so there are so many. We have teams that work on Friday Night Live. We have the community schools partnership programs with community schools where there's needs and assets assessments that are to be done, focus groups. There's also data we know that is collected from West Ed with the California Healthy Kids Survey. And so there is so much input that schools receive, and that county offices of ed have the opportunity to partner with districts and schools in gathering this data. And I think I would challenge that it's not necessarily the opportunity to get the data and to have those relationships and that dialogue, but it's also often what is happening with that data. So I think it's the next step of how is that data being used to really work in these collaborative spaces around needs and also assets, right, of our communities, sharing that within the broader county agency scope. And so also recognizing, right, that many other county office of ed agencies may not, they may be really focused on the need very much. And so oftentimes as districts and schools, we're also looking at assets, right? And the community school strategy really emphasizing that our communities come with many assets, our parents and our students. So really often also having the opportunity to lift those and say, how can we learn from communities where this is working really well or services are being provided and sustained? And so it's really, I think, the data is there. We're connecting with students and families in so much of the work that we do through expanded learning, through prevention and intervention or early intervention, community schools, even through local, our local control accountability plan process. We're always engaging ELACs, DLACs, the English Language Advisory Councils. And it's what's happening with that and how is that not staying within the school site or the LEA? How is it getting to the county and other cross agencies, organizations within counties?
That's great. I love that you double clicked on the resources and experience that the county office has. It's one of the opportunities and challenges. There's a lot of work. And Richard shared a few resources in the chat as well, which is great. Marnie, anything to add?
I appreciate everything Navdeep was lifting up. I think what I would add is that there are many like youth advisory boards, like parent mentor programs, I mean, happening all over the counties through different organizations or agencies. And the challenge is how to leverage what's already there. And again, how do you choose where to, start to invite people into the process and to ensure that they have enough information and context for why you're even asking them to be there so that it actually can be meaningful, and a two-way, flow of information and value. I think that's the challenging part. That's definitely where I think locally we're kind of at that point now. We know where all these groups of interested youth and parents are already gathering. How do we leverage that?
That's great. Well, I know there are lots more questions and we want to get to the work with the demo counties. So if everyone join me in thanking Marnie and Navdeep for their expertise, for their insight, and for putting your own challenges on the table. It is just delightful to learn and experience this with you. Oh, I love that everybody's using the reactions. That's so nice. Navdeep and Marnie, thank you both so much. Deeply appreciate your work. With that, we are going to pivot to one of our last activities for the day. And so I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Renita, to move us into it.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Navdeep and Marnie, for those reflections. I think that sets us up really well for what we're going to do next, which is how are we applying all of this in our context? And so we're going to go into our county teams in breakouts and really do some application. And so during this time, we talked about 3 tools earlier in this session, and we want you to think about how you think these tools are going to play a role in refining your year 3 goals and strategies, and really thinking about the conversation today. And then what are some concrete next steps that your team is going to take to implement any one of these tools? Again, thinking about some of what you heard, particularly from Navdeep and from Marnie. We're going to be in these breakout groups for about 15 minutes. You are going to come back and report out. So make sure to pick a reporter, and you're going to talk about which tool you're planning to implement and how you're going to get started with that effort. For non-demo county members, your demo county assignment is on this slide. So take a look and make sure to go to the correct room. And we really encourage you to, again, be in that space as thought partners, ask good questions, provide support to the demo counties. And again, we'll be asking you to nominate someone to come back and share a summary of your discussion and how you're thinking about using one of these tools moving forward. So Jameen is going to open up the breakout rooms, one for each demo county. Again, if you are a working group member, please go to your assigned county room, and you'll get a 2-minute warning before we come back. So we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes.
And I'm going to hang tight to keep the slide up for a minute. So does anybody need help getting to their room?
Oh, yes, I need help. Humboldt.
Hi, good morning. Clint Arrow. Can I go to Imperial, please?
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna head over to my room now. Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna get started with some quick share outs. Brinny, are you back in the room?
Yes, I am. So Imperial, please correct me if I'm, or add whatever you need to add. So we talked a lot about the meeting matrix tool and how that is actually right where Imperial is, and have already started working on that, and that's on the agenda for the next ILT meeting for them to sort of focus in on that tool. One concern that folks brought up is that you don't want to, and I think this was mentioned in our larger discussion too, we don't want to lose the power of some of these meetings in trying to consolidate, and then we take the power out of the meetings or take the expertise out. So the idea is, if you're going to consolidate, how do you consolidate and still keep, the good stuff that's happening in the meetings? So Armando or Alvaro, what would you add or correct?
No, I think you definitely captured the essence of that, Brittany, and I think this is the right opportunity and timing for Imperial County as we're having these conversations. I was mentioning that we weren't able to get to it at our last agenda, last meeting, as we ran out of time, but it is on the next agenda. So I feel that it's a good, timely conversation. We have some of our partners here today that were able to listen in on the tool itself and the conversations we had. So I'm very curious and excited what that will do to our meetings when we have our next one next month. So thank you for that.
Great. Well, I had the privilege of being in the room with Humboldt, and I wouldn't dare to speak for Peter. So Peter, do you want to share the tool we focused on and what you're thinking about as a next step?
Sure. Yeah. You know, we really still feel like we're in step one with having our MOU signed and creating uh sort ways to share out those agendas. How are we creating our condition for the ecosystem of care? So, what do those meetings look like? How are we going to facilitate those, solving problems around our digital platforms? Because we have tribal members that can't access Teams, and then our county behavioral health doesn't use Google. So there's just it gets a little challenging to do that. And then the other thing is allowing the virtual platform, then it feels that our meetings become diffuse with people that aren't leaving their offices and getting online. And so we know that we really need to roll up our sleeves and do this work. So we really need to look at that shared vision, the platform in which we're going to use, how are we going to share out those notes so that we can just really start building the momentum for the larger things like our data sharing. What is what is that shared vision? Are we all, there's a shared vision in our MOU that's about 2 pages long. So it's not rolling off our tongues. We talked about the importance of that. Like, how do we become more fluent in what this work entails? And I feel that we've been fairly task oriented on that MOU and coming around those agreements. Through that process, we've built stronger relationships and social capital, and the trust is there. And we do want to now leverage the T2 team. I know Elizabeth's in the room, Richard's in the room. Mike's in Costa Rica. I feel bad for him. But anyway, to leverage that help, and to really communicate well to our agencies, that help is there for all of us, and that this isn't something that is driven by us as educators. It's just something that we've had the good fortune to access by virtue of this work. So I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Let's see. How about Alameda County? What tool did you focus on and what's your next step?
I'm happy to share out for Alameda County. We spoke to several pieces. One, really revamping our internal strategy within our County Office of Education around interagency collaboration and collective impact. We've really doubled down on this. We also have looked to apply a meetings matrix that has been developed for some time, but is a living document, and really looking at that closely, both in our internal space and in our collaborative spaces with other county offices of education, along with digging deep into AB 2083 and naming the umbrella of youth that we're trying to collectively serve, being more intentional and clear around that, and then leveraging data. And we had deeper conversations around strategies related to that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You certainly covered a lot of ground there. And Fresno, what tool did you focus on and what's next?
Well, in Fresno, we have finished our MOU, or AB 2083 MOU, and it's with some of our legal counsel. We just got the blessing of our legal counsel to move it forward, and so we have that piece. And then we've been working a lot on the meetings matrix and the cross-agency efforts. The piece we haven't done is the needs assessment inventory tool, and it's because we've set other priorities for the group. Like wraparound and foster care. And we've been working with Richard as our consultant, which has really helped us move this work forward. And so probably in about a year, because Richard always, he instills in us that, this work takes time. It doesn't happen, yesterday or tomorrow. But so we're trying to take our time as we go through this process. But probably in the next year, one of our priorities may be the needs assessment inventory tool.
Thank you so much, Trina. Let me turn it over to Brinny.
Yeah.
Some last thoughts before we wrap.
Yes. Well, before we go there, I do want to give Mary Jane Puffer an opportunity to just tell us about this resource that she's about to put in the chat from the LA Trust. Mary Jane, can you just give us a quick?
Yeah, so this is an impact report, and a lot of folks on this call have been exposed to that through breaking barriers and whatnot. But this tool, it is called a data exchange, and it actually intersects the student record with the medical record. We de-identify the data, but we've been able to conduct really interesting research with the data as a whole, and it's a great management tool. So it just really, with your data use agreements, business associate agreements with your health providers, mental, dental health, or primary care, this gives you a bird's eye view of how to monitor the system, but also like trend child health conditions. April 2023 in the Journal of Adolescent Health, we published a study that showed 5.4 days of attendance are improved with a single wellness center visit, meaning primary care 1 to 3 days. But if it was a mental health visit, it was 7 to 9 days of attendance saved. So that becomes like policy and economic monetizing of the investment. So I highly suggest people have a look at this. Most recently, we partnered with Robert Wood Johnson's clinical fellows about the impact of the immigration policies on access to care and student health. That will come out later. The data is de-identified, but we can see trends in exactly what happened when all of the ICE raids were happening in Los Angeles. So, it's just an incredible opportunity to really look at the macro level system and how it's impacting in a very positive way, children's ability to succeed in school. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Jane. All right, we are gonna wrap up. Mary Jane, there's a couple of questions for you in the chat if you want to respond just about the report. So our next meeting is actually at the Breaking Barriers Symposium in Sacramento, October 26 to 29. That's a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We have 3 kind of CLWG focused events that are all happening on Monday. So for those of you who maybe can't make all 3 days, if you want to focus on coming on Monday, that would be probably the around the CLWG focused events, that would be when to come. So just we'll send more information out about this, but there will be a Transforming Together panel that Elizabeth is putting together. Some of you have been invited to be on this panel to start to really get word out about what we've been doing in this initiative and the implementation guide and so forth. We're also planning a separate CLWG meeting with keynote speaker Roberto Rivera. This is going to be focused on stakeholder engagement strategies. And I know I heard in the breakouts this morning that, you know, this is a challenge for a lot of folks on how to engage stakeholders, which stakeholders to engage, how to set things up so everyone feels informed enough to participate and co-design and whatever that would be. So I think that'll be a super great conversation to have. And then that same day, there will be county breakout. So you can use that time, of course, to consider what you've been hearing about stakeholder engagement at the symposium and in these other meetings. So please think about coming. The next slide, which we'll go to in a minute, will have the registration information. If you haven't received it yet or haven't registered yet, please go to this address. We'll put it in the chat as well. Karen has posted a feedback form. We're trying to engage in slightly different ways over this next year. So please do complete this feedback form. It really helps us design these CLWG meetings so that they are more engaging for you and using your expertise appropriately and interestingly. And finally, for those of you who are not part of a demonstration county, we did send out a survey asking you about your expertise, but because again, we want to more intentionally engage you in some of this, the material that you're already really working in. So if you would please complete that form as soon as you can, that will be super helpful for us. So thank you all very much. I think we're at time. Anything else from anyone?
Just a quick clarifying question, if you don't mind. If we're only able to attend the CLWG meeting, October 27th, do we register? We still have to register for the whole Breaking Barriers?
That would be a question for Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, maybe you can respond to that offline and send a note to everyone about whether there's a price break for attending.
Happy to do that. Yep. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We'll make sure that's in the follow-up information. Thanks, everyone, very much. We'll send you more stuff as we always do. It was great to see you all, and please reach out if you need anything else from us. Thank you.